Welcome everyone to Public Narrative's 26th Annual Community Media Awards. I'm Jamira Alexander, the President and Executive Director of Public Narrative, and we have an exciting evening planned. But first, we wanted to recreate this experience as much as possible to give us an in-person experience. So we're kicking things off with a short set of music by DJ Sadie Woods, award-winning Chicago DJ, post-disciplinary artist, and independent curator. While you listen, take a moment to share where you're watching from in the chat. And now, here's DJ Sadie Woods.
The pressure, you know you can't keep it down. So let's do a little cooking and turn this thing around. See that playing with your mind, it's just a matter of time. Don't let them infiltrate. You got to get the record straight. Sitting with the television looking out at you, it won't do. They're pushing off their filthy lies. They know I'm hip to their disguise. This integrity will never be compromised, 'cause I'm not blind. Listen, my youth, I'm not blind. I've been telling you the truth. I'm not blind. Is it really too late? I'm not blind. For you to educate. I'm not blind. Yourself in your mind. I'm not blind. Ignorance is a crime. Take a look and you'll find that I'm not blind. Pressure, you know, it's gotten out of hand. Just take a look at the children on the inner city streets. Pressure's got a new master plan. Take an innocent mind, and as we know, you get a youth in its prime. Add a little confusion, spike the soul with poison codes, and create an illusion. My little brother, willing living for the streets. Don't be
motion. Move your mind, body, your soul powers holistic. Heal your spirit, channel ancestors' resilience. All this magic in me generate the glow. This that black power. I got black power. Black.
I am lying, and I cannot see you out there, your petty evil. Oh no, it don't bother me. You bragging on them clothes you wear, and you're looking down on me. But a fresh and clean, so I don't wear right on. Better have some sympathy. Them educated people running the lives of our society, making up the rules, holding back the schools. Only one thing to prove, they got a hell of a nation. Sing. Get out there, your petty evil. Oh no, it won't bother me. You begging on the clothes you wear, and you're looking down on me. But I swear I don't care, don't say.
This man has clearly committed murder, and the murder in which he has committed has been shown all over the world. Everyone of any civil and conscious mind
My
knows that this
findings
is
are an
murder.
appropriate sentence
And
would
the
be
reality
81
of it
months
is,
in the Illinois
we have to
Department
do
of Corrections,
something
2 years
legislative.
mandatory.
Well, it's filthy, I ain't wanna pen about pigs no more in my book of rhymes. 81 months for killing them, his mama carried him for 9. Empire like lion, 8 chances to be alive. He was 17 the last time anybody seen him alive. The numbers, the stats. Spun around on his toes like a ballerina, caught John Smith him right through the back. Then you wanna ask why you never ever grow attached. When the Velcro is fresh, everybody wanna give a snatch.
Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you. Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you. Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you. Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you.
Black girls get Kelly, black boys get Van Dyked. You can see the projects reach heaven off Dan Ryan. Out of towners say we on edge and they ain't lying. Look down at the Space Jams, can't believe he ain't flying. When the games ain't won, when the Rays ain't raising, when the grapes in the sun, hands buried on Hallie and Dwayne left waving. Tryna wade in the lake on traumas in the waiting, ironic that it's called a wake. The person that is for is literally not awake. I'm tired. They like at least he got fired. I'm scared. Everybody got debates when it come to Black Death.
Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you. Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you. Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you. Get cops on my block. Gun smoke, gun smoke. Look at you.
Tryna wade in the water, but Dwayne left waving. Tryna wade in the water, but Dwayne left waving. Tryna wade in the water, but Dwayne left waving. Tryna wade in the water, but Dwayne left waving.
My destiny was written on a wall in Egypt. My name stands out like it was written in cement. Okay, okay. London been on fire, Mississippi still burning. Push pops out, he was challenging others. Fear undercovers what's happening, brothers, sisters, mothers. Father fell off and left us to discover. V's a mass to express ourselves. Tumblr and Twitter said please and help. SOS by SMS, all caps. Cause I'm yelling in this text, but the scream sounding like P in front of S. Mr. Politician, are you deaf?
Hello, and thank you again for joining us for the 26th Annual Community Media Awards, the first ever to take place virtually. I want to thank the folks who've supported us in making our first ever virtual award ceremony possible. Many thanks to the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation, WBEZ, the folks at Elevate, and to our media partner, Chicago Public Square. Thanks also to our longtime supporters, Michael Burke and Robert Charles, and to Paul O'Connor for sponsoring in remembrance of Saul Polk and Lynn O'Connor. I cannot let this moment pass without thanking our board directors for their leadership and support, and our team who served Public Narrative and its audience tirelessly. This evening is special because of theirs and our honorees' labor of love. I must extend my deepest gratitude to the Terkel Nominating Committee of past Studs Terkel Award winners who gathered to identify this year's Terkel class. And what a Terkelian class it is. Speaking of Terkelian, we're raffling off a Terkelian bundle tonight, including 3 books by Studs Terkel and a Public Narrative t-shirt, mug, and face mask. Click the link in the chat to enter before 7 p.m. Central Time. I'm pleased to introduce our MC for the evening. She's one of the first Terkel Award winners chosen by Studs himself in 1994. Truly one of a kind and deserving of such prestige and honor, she's received the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award from the Chicago Headline Club and a host of other awards from the National Association of Black Journalists, the Associated Press, the Public Radio News Directors Association, and the Society of Professional Journalists. We're honored to welcome 1994 Terkel Award winner and National Public Radio correspondent, Cheryl Corley.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamira. And thank you for that wonderful music set that you arranged as well. And welcome to all of you joining us for the 26th Annual Community Media Awards. Over the past year, there has just been a world of change that we've all experienced. We've witnessed and reported on the protests and at times a reckoning that's come after deadly or near fatal encounters between police and citizens. And although we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel in many places in the United States, we are still struggling with a worldwide pandemic with its deaths and quarantines, financial upheaval and the like. And we witnessed and reported on this huge political upheaval and turmoil surrounding a national election. Of course, the Chicago region was involved in all of those stories and plenty more. And what has remained constant, though, even as we continue to see a shakeup in the world of media and journalism too, is the work of public narrative. And I want to specifically applaud Jamira and her team for not only surviving, but thriving. And what's also been a constant is the dedication and extraordinary talent of journalists out there doing the work, talking to people, investigating and telling the stories. And for decades, that was Studs Terkel's job. He could tell, as you know, fascinating stories, and he'd write a plethora of books, oral histories about working, about Division Street America, about Hope Dies Last, and even a book about race and how Blacks and whites think and feel about the American obsession. Studs Terkel was the people's journalist, and as one past Terkel Award winner, Shirley Jihad, told me, he found the poetry in the voice of the common person and brought that forward, shedding light on the elegant, on the heroic, on humanity, and he did it every day. That's what he listened for. And for public narrative, it's all about the story too. And as many of you know, this nonprofit began in 1989 as the Community Media Workshop. It was a school of sorts for organizations to learn how to work with the media, and it continues to be a bridge between journalists and community. Its goal, of course, teaching journalists and nonprofits how to tell a better story, a fuller one, how to change the public narrative. So 5 years after the organization began, the Studs Terkel Community Media Award was born. And it's such an honor to receive one. About 80 of us have done that now. I talked to Tracy Baim, the publisher of the Chicago Reader, who was recognized by Public Narrative in 2005. And she says receiving the award from the man himself was among the highlights of her journalism career, a special honor that made her feel more deeply a part of Chicago's amazing journalism history. Lolly Bowen, now with the Field Foundation, was a Chicago Tribune reporter who was recognized 5 years ago. And she says the Terkel Award solidified her as a Chicago storyteller. And it meant she was following in the rich tradition of centering stories about the fantastic and fabulous people in our city. And WBEZ reporter Monica Ng in 2015 says she was just delighted to be celebrated for doing something so important, but often overlooked in the awards world, just talking to regular people and giving them voice. So tonight, we come together virtually to celebrate even more journalists doing great work, producing stories that support public narratives and Studs Terkel's mission of making sure that diverse voices are part of the news that we tell. So we're going to begin tonight's celebration with the Uplifting Voice Award. Now, that's a recognition that Public Narrative began first presenting about 7 years ago to celebrate anyone who in their work elevates the voices of people in their community and their neighborhood. And that word neighborhood is especially key because Chicago is often called the city of neighborhoods. And officially, there are 77 of them. It's a fact we often celebrate as we rattle off areas like Lincoln Park or Roseland or Greektown or Pilsen, just to name a few. The city of neighborhoods. And that really has this really idyllic tone, right? But what it's also meant throughout the years is you stay in your neighborhood and I'll stay in mine. It's been a story about boundaries and segregation and limitations. And that's a story that photographer and visual artist and lifelong Inglewood resident Tonika Lewis-Johnson wants to change. More than a decade ago, Johnson helped co-found RAGE, the Resident Association of Greater Inglewood, a group that really works to mobilize people and resources to force positive change in a neighborhood that's often disparaged. She's also helped create the Inglewood Arts Collective to reframe the narrative of her neighborhood as well, finding beauty and exhibiting everyday beauty. And it's her visual photographic investigation of neighborhoods that's the foundation for her very unique multimedia folded map project. It's a project that gives voice to the disparity and inequity in Chicago by using the mapping grid system to show the results of systemic racism in housing and the disparate investments in city resources on opposite sides of Chicago. And by connecting these twin maps, residents who live at corresponding addresses on the north and south sides of the city, the Folded Map Project not only visually illustrates the disparities between neighborhoods, it brings people together to really have thoughtful conversations about it. Now, Tonika started with residents in Inglewood and Edgewater so they could talk about their life and what is similar and dissimilar in their communities. But it's not only the folks who live at particular addresses. The Folded Map Project invites all of us really to examine and question how we are impacted by institutional racism and how that has played a role in segregating this city of neighborhoods and how we can work to bridge those regional divides. So let's all celebrate and hear now from the 2021 Uplifting Voices recipient, Tonika Lewis-Johnson.
Hi everyone, I'm Tonika Lewis-Johnson, and I just want to tell you, I am just so deeply honored to be the recipient of Public Narrative's Uplifting Voices Award. It's almost full circle for me because the first time I ever learned that you could receive an award for reporting or storytelling was when I was working as an intern for the Chicago Reporter in 1998, 1999. I went to Columbia College and majored in journalism, but I also had a deep passion for photography, so that was my minor. And I wanted to test out, what that world was like. And I got an internship at the Chicago Reporter as a photojournalism major. And I was completely immersed and fascinated in the world of investigative journalism because you have to remember at the time, 1999, this is when Laura Washington was the editor, so I saw her every day. There was an amazing staff of brilliant reporters like Sarah Karp, Mick Dumpke, Alicia Tate, Alden Laurie, and all of them since then have continued to encourage and support and ultimately be mentors to me, because what I learned from them was the importance and the dedication necessary to telling really critical, important issues that can help the larger public understand and possibly create solutions to systemic issues and injustices. And I knew I wanted to do work like that. I just knew I didn't want to do investigative reporting the way that they did it, because it was brutal. Their hours were long and they were so passionate, and we would have to fact check and people would change their quotes, and I would be so upset. But all of them dealt with it with such grace and brilliance. And, it would take me getting older, discovering issues that are important to me in my life, before I could create and present my project Folded Map. And that project is deeply influenced by my passion for storytelling, but more specifically, creative alternative ways to do investigation and sharing it with the larger public. Those are all things that I was able to develop as a result of not only being passionate about storytelling, but also being around amazing writers and storytellers like everyone who worked at the Chicago Reporter when I was there. So I never thought, as that 18, 19-year-old who was, an intern at the Chicago Reporters, helping them submit for their journalism awards, I never would have thought that a couple decades later I would be receiving one of those very similar awards. And so it just really warms my heart, and it affirms that the larger Chicago public, we do want to see our city better. And we want to see a city that is not segregated. We want to bridge connections between each other, because we have already actively been doing that, but we wanted to see reflected in the built environment around us. And so thank you again for recognizing my work as a contribution to Chicagoans wanting a better Chicago. Thank you.
And thank you. That is such a wonderful project and such important work. So thank you so much for that, Tonika. Last year, Public Narrative debuted the Ripple Effect Award. And that's a recognition for a journalist anywhere in the United States whose work has had an impact on Chicago and beyond. So it is just extremely fitting that this year's recipient is Jamie Kalven, the renowned independent investigative journalist and human rights activist, and for years, the executive director of the Invisible Institute. His reporting first brought the fatal shooting of Laquan McDonald by then Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke to the public's attention. And like Studs Terkel, Jamie Kalven believes that most people have something to say that is just worth hearing. And like Studs, he's passionate about his work. For more than a decade, Jamie Kalven's base of operations was public housing at Stateway Gardens. And that's where he created a program of grassroots public works, which was all about creating alternatives for ex-offenders and members of street gangs. Now, Studs Terkel often called his oral histories guerrilla journalism. They were a form of documenting human rights. And in many years, Kalven has done the same. He's reported extensively on patterns of police abuse and impunity in Chicago. He's investigated the shortage of public housing management on Southside residents undergoing the Chicago Housing Authority's transformation. And those who nominated him say Kalven has demonstrated how the power of the pen and photographs can help raise the voices of the city's most vulnerable poor. His Invisible Institute has also been the incubator for important journalistic initiatives like City Bureau, bringing new meaning to the term citizen journalist. Early in his career, he was mostly alone in his pursuits, and now he works side by side with many like-minded journalists and is nourished by an ethos of collaboration and mutual support. So join in congratulations to the Ripple Effect Award winner, Jamie Kalven.
This award is an unexpected gift in several respects. First, as we emerge into spring after our plague year, it's a joy to join in Public Narrative's annual celebration. No event makes the Chicago journalism community visible to itself the way this one does. And it's an honor to receive the Ripple Effect Award. The meaning of this award for me is deepened by the fact that the first recipient was Nicole Hannah Jones. Nicole was a superb reporter before she conceived and executed the 1619 Project, but she became a transcendent force with that extraordinary contribution to our understanding of who we are and of what journalism can do. Above all, I'm grateful to have an occasion to summon forth the patron saint of public narrative and my old friend, Studs Terkel. Studs has been a presence throughout my life. There's a sense in which I grew up inside his voice. The radio station that was his original and longtime home, WFMT, was always on in my parents' house. It was the medium through which my siblings and I moved growing up. And Studs was on the air a lot in those days, at 10 a.m. on weekday mornings, and then again on Sunday evening. For me as a child, the sound of his voice conjured the richness of the wide world beyond the household and carried the promise of how much of that richness a single sensibility could absorb without bursting. Together with my father, Studs embodied for me the joys and possibilities of conversation. They planted the seeds of the conviction, central to my understanding of both the First Amendment and my practice as a journalist, that there's nothing that cannot be talked about. I was also infected at an impressionable age by Studs' sense of style, expressed in the way he signed off at the end of his show with a Depression-era phrase popularized by Woody Guthrie. "Take it easy," he would say, "but take it." As a kid, I loved that note of nonchalance, defiance. I still do. When I was perhaps 12 years old, I heard words issuing from the radio that I registered with startled recognition, as if they were already written in my soul. The program was Born to Live, a collage of voices created by Studs and his colleague Jim Unrath. The words were spoken by William Sloane Coffin, then chaplain at Yale University. The occasion was the invocation at a graduation ceremony sometime in the 1960s. It became a WFMT tradition to rebroadcast Born to Live on New Year's Day. Each year, the Kalven family would gather in the living room to listen. As Studs' inspired orchestration of voices and music unfolded, Bertrand Russell yielding to James Baldwin, then to a Hiroshima survivor, then to a sharecropper in the Mississippi Delta, I would wait for Coffin's invocation. It became for me something akin to a New Year's resolution. Over the years, I noticed that Studs frequently quoted Coffin's words on public occasions. Of all the words he had taken in and deeply heard, these words seemed to resonate for him with special power and clarity. Toward the end of his life, over drinks at his place, I asked if he could give me a sight to the Coffin benediction. He went upstairs. I could hear him rummaging around and mumbling to himself. A few minutes later, he came down and handed me a sheet of paper on which he had written out in pencil what I've come to think of as Studs' prayer. Framed, it now hangs on the wall of my office. Here it is. O Lord, as we leave this university, let these be young men and young women for whom the complexity of issues only serve their zeal to deal with them. Young men and young women who alleviated pain by sharing it, and young men and young women who were always willing to risk something big for something good, so that we may have in the world a little more truth, a little more justice, a little more beauty, than would have been there had we not loved the world enough to quarrel with it for what it is not, but still can be. O God, take our minds and think through them, take our lips and speak through them, and take our hearts and set them on fire. I can think of no better way of describing the sort of journalism that Studs modeled and that I, like so many in this virtual room, aspire to practice than a lover's quarrel with the world for what it is not, but still can be. Passionate attachments to places, to people, to causes, to life itself do not preclude rigorous inquiry and reporting of the highest quality. Indeed, they can enable it. Detachment has its place, but there are things that can only be learned about the world and can only be accurately reported if you care. Such an orientation opens Studs and those of us who follow his example to charges of being advocates as opposed to that mythical being, the objective journalist. Ultimately, the only rebuttal to such criticism is the work itself. But there's an irony here worth noting. To dismiss Studs as doctrinaire misses precisely what was so exemplary about his way of being in the world: his immense appetite for being surprised by life. He elicited the voices of others, not in the expectation they would illustrate some thesis, but in the hope they would delight him by refusing to conform to his preconceptions, and so carrying him deeper into the world. Influence, this business of ripple effects, is a mysterious matter. There's always a danger, if you believe your press clippings, that you'll be deluded about the extent of your impact. That said, it's been my great good fortune to be joined in recent years by an extraordinary group of younger colleagues who've embraced the values that animate my work and have made them their own. The result has been the creation of the Invisible Institute, an adventure that continues to unfold. So I dedicate this award for my past work to the Invisible Institute team and the work that lies ahead. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Betts, and I've been absolutely honored and excited to serve as board chair in one of the most important times in our society's history. First, I'd like to offer a sincere thank you to both Tonika and Jamie, and a congratulations for receiving these awards. And thank you for leading such important work that has encouraged and inspired some of the most impactful community engagement, groundbreaking government accountability, and an unwavering ethic of equity throughout our world-class city of Chicago and beyond. Founded 32 years ago as the Community Media Workshop, on the principle that American democracy requires a free, informed press and an educated public, it has worked diligently for decades on news media literacy and helping communities tell their story. These days, we leverage the influence of media to create platforms that serve as catalysts for change of some of the most crippling narratives impacting public health, public safety, and public education, with some of our amazing partners like the Alliance for Research in Chicagoland Communities, the Obama Foundation's My Brother's Keeper Alliance, and the Youth District Advisory Council. Still, public narrative is the place for media makers and media consumers, as celebrated tonight with the Studs Terkel Community Media Award. I joined this organization because I've witnessed the outcomes when stories aren't told and voices aren't heard. I believe that this work is critical to building the on-ramps to equity and removing the barriers to empathy. On behalf of our board, I would like to thank Jamira and her team for all of the hard work in putting this remarkable event together. I'd also like to congratulate all of the honorees tonight as well. I'd also like to extend a special thanks to our board directors for their tireless commitment to service by offering their wisdom and expertise. There's still time before the end of the night to enter into our raffle for public narrative swag items and 3 classics written by Studs Terkel himself. So click the link in the chat to enter to win. And thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Marcus. And, click those links, click those links. For nearly 3 decades, Public Narrative has honored journalists with the Studs Terkel Award. And it recognizes people who don't just work to get the substance of the story, just the facts correct, but like Terkel, these are folks who listen, engage, and pay attention to the people who might not be the official voice of a subject. They are excellent journalists who, as Studs would say, reports on news that's bottom up. They tell stories about people who make the city what it is. And as Public Narrative puts it, these are reporters and editors, producers, videographers, and photographers who take risk in covering social issues by offering new or unusual perspectives from housing to race to violence to health to education and beyond. And these awards are given for a body of work rather than a single article or a series, and they go to journalists at any stage of their career. And anyone can nominate a journalist to win the Terkel. And in the early days, Studs would choose the award winners. These days, a committee of the winners does that work. And this year, we were lucky to have a robust group on the committee because we had just over 80 nominations. Since its debut in 1994, at least 5 news organizations have won the award. And as I mentioned earlier, about 80 journalists. And tonight we're going to be celebrating some very impressive people for the incredible work they do, elevating voices and getting the word out. And here to introduce our first Studs Terkel Award recipient of the evening is 2016 Terkel Award winner, Lolly Bowen.
It is my great honor to welcome Brandis Friedman to the Studs Terkel community and congratulate her as we offer this award. I once heard a powerful and accomplished literary editor describe Studs Terkel as everything good. The same compliment can be bestowed upon Brandis. As a reporter, Brandis is introspective, intrepid, and downright prolific. When you watch her work, you can't look away. Whether she is reporting about politics or education or even environmental injustice, she finds a way to center the people who are normally sidelined in these conversations. All of her work has at the heart of it the people impacted, the people who have to live with the decisions, and the people who make our city the jewel that it is. She knows where the attention has always gone, and she puts the focus right back where it should be, on the people. Many of us first heard her when she was reporting for WBBM News Radio, but she stepped in front of the camera and left her mark. Today, she is using her platform to shine a light specifically on Black and Latino voices that have long been overlooked and marginalized in our city. She's taking us into neighborhoods and communities that were once only discussed because of violence and helping us to see those places in a new light. She's introducing us to new people, and she brings the balance, the nuance, and the layered storytelling that we've all been asking for and longing for. Brandis's work embodies Studs Terkel because it has at its center the people. Like Studs, Brandis, you are recording the first draft of Chicago history with lots of thoughtfulness and with a pizzazz and a special touch that only you bring to this work. When we watch you on an assignment, we know we are watching one of our own, someone who can report with great depth and intellectual curiosity, but also with sincerity and a sensitivity. Studs would be so proud of the work that you're doing. I know your journalism peers who served on the selection committee and your audience here in Chicago, we certainly are proud. So congratulations, Brandy, and welcome to the Studs Terkel family and the Studs Terkel legacy. You've earned it.
For the last few years, I have been trying to figure out what my journalistic niche is, where I really shine. What kind of journalist am I best suited to be? Previous honorees include amazing investigative journalists exposing waste and fraud and corruption. Some are outstanding data journalists. Others are really good at breaking major stories or leading a newsroom full of other talented journalists. And maybe I do a little bit of some of those, but let's be honest, none of them is really my strong suit. Honestly, I think receiving this honor is helping me figure out where I fit in. Finally, after 20 years in the business. During the awards announcement, Tom Clark defined Terkelian as, quote, finding the ability to let the voice of the person you're talking to emerge. It is a way of storytelling that doesn't assume, but is curious. Always curious. Leave it to a reporter to directly quote the awards announcement. Whether or not I'm actually good at this reflects the part of journalism that I do love the most. I am legitimately curious about the people we get to meet and learn about every day, who they are and where they come from, what's important to them, what they believe, what their lives are like, and why. This applies to the grassroots community organizer and the well-known public official. Now, as a journalist, I am grateful for the privilege to hear and tell those stories in this city where my dreams have come true. Which is funny because 20 years ago, I'm not certain I would have chosen Chicago for myself as a city to settle down and raise my kids in. The first time I visited the city was the summer of 1997 during college. I got sick while my cousin, a Chicago firefighter, proudly showed me his firehouse. The temperatures fell below 70 degrees in the middle of summer, which was just shocking to this Mississippian and unheard of. I also visited one of the Chicago high-rise projects, and my 18-year-old self was stunned by the conditions that so many people were living in. I clearly learned so much more about the city and grew to love it as I do today, because Chicago sure has been good to me. That's evident not only with this honor, but with the professional opportunities that have allowed me to even be considered in the same conversation as my fellow honorees and previous recipients. So I have some people to thank. I want to thank my mom, because it is because of her that I never questioned who or what I could be. My husband, who believes in me more than I do myself, thus always pushing me to reach higher, and without him, I would not have this life. The entire Chicago Tonight and WTTW news team. We put the fun in dysfunctional family, but we're a family, doggone it, and they all make me so much better. And I'm so proud to work with this bunch. To Public Narrative and the Selection Committee for recognizing the work these journalists do every year, and in these times especially, when what we do has never been called into question or more necessary than it is right now. To say that I'm thankful is an understatement. I am humbled and honored, and while I'm receiving this award today, right now, I will keep working to earn it every day going forward. I'll end with this. The day these awards were announced was the day the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial was also announced. As a Black woman who grew up in Mississippi, the mother of 2 Black sons, I still struggled to be celebratory. Now, some of that is journalistic training, of course. We don't get involved or attached. But we do have humanity. And I know that there is so much more work to be done, more stories to be told, and we all have a role to play. And while my fellow journalists will continue to hold officials and systems accountable, I will do my best to give ear to the voices impacted by those systems and the people working to change them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Such wonderful words. Congratulations, Brandis. We value your humanity and your storytelling, and so very happy that you set aside that Mississippi doubt about Chicago weather and made this city your home. Now here to introduce our next Studs Terkel Award winner is the recipient for the evening is a 2005 Terkel Award winner, Tracy Bain.
I'm honored to present the Studs Terkel Award this year to Karen Hawkins. I first worked with Karen 2 decades ago at Windy City Times newspaper, and ever since I've been trying to figure out a way to work with her again. She later went to work for Associated Press, then got her master's in journalism at Northwestern University. She worked at various consultancies and even for government at one point. And then she founded her own publication, Rebellious, which has its lineage back to the Associated Press. To ask her that story sometime about how she named her website Rebellious. It's a fantastic online magazine for the Chicago community. 2.5 years ago, when I was asked to come to the Chicago Reader as publisher, one of my very first calls was to Karen to see if she would come on board in an editorial capacity. In that time, she's done phenomenal work, and now we are co-publishers of the Chicago Reader. Karen is one of those journalists that hasn't always gotten a lot of the attention, but she's just done the work. And her entrepreneurial spirit with the Rebellious and her incredible work at the Chicago Reader mean that she's very much in a league with the Studs Terkel honorees this year and those in the past. Congratulations, Karen. It's an honor to work with you side by side each day.
Hello, 2021 Community Media Awards. I could not be more excited to be recording this video as an acceptance speech for the 2021 Studs Terkel Community Media Award. I still can't believe it, and I still am so humbled, and I am also vaguely mortified to be recording a video that I know will be played alongside a video that's been recorded by Brandis. Like, oh my gosh. And I just want to put out there that some of us went into print for a reason. I'm just going to leave it at that. And say congratulations to you, Brandis, and Michael, and Maureen, and Tonika, and Jamie. I could not be prouder to be in a class with you all this year. Congratulations. And I just have admired all of your work over the years, and I'm just thrilled to be here with you. So I want to make sure I thank some folks who I know are going to get mad at me if I don't. First of all, thank you, Jamira and Public Narrative folks, for this, and thank you to the selection committee. And I commend you, selection committee, including the folks I know on it, for being such a vault about this. I know you've been dying to tell me how things went, and because we're all nosy and gossipy journalists, but I commend you. You've not said anything. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. I also want to make sure I thank my mom and my sister for always being so supportive, and all of my friends and family who've been so supportive over the years of all of my journalistic endeavors. I want to thank the staff at the Chicago Reader and my team at Rebellious Magazine for Women for renewing my faith in journalism. To be honest with you, I have been in and out of this industry a lot of times over the last 25 years, and I've always gotten pulled back, and being in journalism community with you now is really such an honor, and I can't wait to see what we do next. I can't thank the Reader, of course, without thanking Tracy Bain, my friend and mentor for more than 20 years now. We are ride or die in this now together, and I am so grateful that you thought of me for any role at the Reader, and particularly the roles I've had at the Reader, and it's just so much fun to be working with you again 20-something years later. So thank you for everything, and again, can't wait to see what we do next. Looking at my notes. So I also want to thank all of the bosses and mentors and guides I've had over the years in journalism and outside of journalism, who I feel like have helped me be the kind of reporter and writer and editor and leader that I've always wanted to be. And I also want to thank the folks who were terrible, actually, just the worst, because I've learned as much from you bad bosses as I have from my amazing bosses. You have really been instructive about who I never, ever want to be. So thank you for being terrible.
thank you for forcing me out of the industry so I could get pulled back in a better way and hit the reset button on my career. Thank you. And I mentioned that I'm mortified to be recording this video. I also, though, understand how important it is that somebody who looks like me, who is mouthy like me, who is a mouthy Black lesbian like me, mouthy Black lesbian left feminist like me, is on a video accepting an award in journalism, and that I'm still here is really important. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you are struggling in journalism, if you are feeling like you are being pushed out, if you are in college, you have people telling you that you can't do this, or you have bosses who are telling you you can't do it, I hope that you persevere. And I hope that you have people around you who believe in you and who believe in your talent and who believe in your ability to grow. And I hope you stay with us, because the industry really needs you. And we are ever, ever, ever going to get better if more of us don't stay and improve it from within, which isn't to say you can't step out of it, try to improve it, but I hope that you stick with it. And I just want to close by saying thank you again, and for reading the autograph that I got from Studs probably 20-something years ago on his book, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? I, at the time, was training in karate at Thousand Waves with Nancy Lanou, and there is an essay in this book about Nancy Lanou, and so Studs signed it. Peace, grace, and beauty. Here's to 1,000 waves and something. Y'all, I don't know what the last word says, but it's so meaningful to me that I have his autograph, that I have a picture with Studs somewhere out in the world, that he personalized this autograph because he knew how much I love Nancy and love 1,000 Waves. So this just means so much to me, and thank you all so much. And I hope to see you in person next year. Thanks.
You cannot beat Karen Hawkins' enthusiasm. Loved her typewriter as well in the background, but love her honesty, her spirit, her entrepreneurial determination, and her advice. So congratulations, Karen. And here to introduce our next Studs Terkel Award recipient of the evening is 2015 Terkel Award winner, Monica Ng.
Hey, Mike, Monica Ng here. I just want to say congratulations on your Studs Terkel Award. So well-deserved. You're the guy who gives voice to basically the whole region of Northwest Indiana, as far as we're concerned. Also, East Chicago. Again, a community that's so integral to the Chicago area, but that we just don't often get to. Not to mention the Latino community that you're in touch with, that you're part of, that you reach out to, whether it's through TV or your great radio work. I think it's long overdue that you became part of this club. And I want to thank you for being Hot News Mike, for being the guy who, when something is happening, we say, who can go? You're always ready and willing. When we need someone to fill in on the weekends, guess who raises his hand? I hope your family is not resenting this, but you are the man who will go in an emergency situation when this recent video came out and go and talk to the people. This was when we were going to have the announcement of the Studs Terkel awardees this year. You were out on Daly Plaza interviewing people, trying to interview people about what was happening in Chicago. For all you do and all you've done, I want to say congratulations.
Hello and good evening to everyone. I'm Michael Puente, reporter with WBEZ. Well, there's really no way to prepare yourself for being named a recipient of the Studs Terkel Award. I want to first thank Public Narrative. I also want to congratulate my fellow recipients being honored tonight. It's an honor just to be mentioned in the same breath as you and others who have received the award over the years. I'd like to thank my family, my wife, Grisela, and my daughters, Stephanie and Jessica, and my siblings, Jesse, Tony, and Liz, and all my nieces, nephews, and cousins. I definitely view this as a family award because there's no way to do journalism without an impact in your family life. This award means so much for a number of reasons. One, it's not anything I applied for, and it's for a body of work. I've been writing and reporting since 1992, working in newspapers for 13 years, then turning to radio, getting hired as WBEZ's first bureau reporter in 2006. Ever since I was young, I wanted to be a reporter. As a teen, I watched my cousin, Teresa Gutierrez, on ABC7 Chicago. She was definitely one of my early mentors. I've always wanted to inform people and be the first one they heard it from. But as I've grown older, being the first isn't as important to me. I want to tell a story, and if it takes a little longer, so be it. To be honest, I never really thought I would be eligible to receive this award because, well, I cover a lot of Northwest Indiana. But if you know Studs Terkel, places like Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary, just like Chicago, are his kind of towns, filled with working class people, regular people, hardworking people, his people. In one of his recordings from the 80s, he spoke to Ed Sadlowski, the former steelworker activist on the Southeast Side. His daughter Susan is now in the Chicago City Council. Studs and Ed talked about the struggles of the steelworkers, the long hours, and not just those on the Southeast Side, but in Gary and East Chicago. They talked about working a 3 to 11 shift, the hours my dad, Jesus Puente, used to work for 4 decades at Inland Steel so he could send me and my siblings to college. Ed and Studs talked about how the immigrants in the early 1900s, Mexicans, Polish, and Serbians, came to work in the mills and lived in boarding houses, just like my grandfather, Guadalupe Saldana, did back in the 30s in East Chicago, where he met my grandmother. Studs interviewed Gene Shepard, another radio legend from Hammond, who wrote A Christmas Story. And with Richard Gordon Hatcher, Gary's first Black mayor, they talked about the issues and civil rights struggles in Gary and in the nation. Studs talked back in the 60s about the efforts to save the Indiana Dunes with Dorothy Buell. Studs was trying to be part of the change, not just in Chicago, but in Northwest Indiana as well. I want to say that no one wins an award like this alone. I like to thank my friends, my hometown buddy, Jorge Lara, who now works at Telemundo in Chicago, and my pals, Michael Gonzalez and Steve Zalewski, and members of my WBEZ family, Monica Ng, Maria Zamudio, Natalie Moore, Chip Mitchell, Linda Ludden, too many to name. But I also have to mention my good friend, the late Carlos Hernandez Gomez, who played a role in getting me here, and Sally Isley, who hired me. And again, I like to thank my late parents, Jesus and Olivia Puente. I wish they were alive to see this, but in some ways, I think they know about this. Public Narrative announced I would be getting this award on April 20th, which would have been their 58th wedding anniversary. My dad actually gave me the best journalism advice ever. When I was working on some tough political stories in my hometown, and some of those stories involved some of his friends he grew up with, I said, Dad, I hope your friends aren't getting angry with you. He said, Mike, if you're telling the truth, they have no reason to be angry. Bottom line, Studs is Chicago. There is no question about that. But he had a lot of Northwest Indiana in him. Finally, I know Studs had a long relationship with WFMT and WBEZ, but I never met him. But in his radio interviews, I feel like I do know him. And I hope if he's looking down, he's not saying, oh no, not a Hoosier. But here's one more thing about Studs. We're both White Sox fans. So go White Sox and go Studs, and thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Here's to the White Sox. I'm with you, bro. And here's to you as well. You bring us so much news from Indiana and beyond, and you are quite right. They are voices that Studs would celebrate as well. So congratulations and thank you for the work that you do. And here to introduce our final Studs Terkel Award recipient of the evening is 2015 Terkel Award winner, Maudlin E. Hedgerika.
Maureen O'Donnell, what words can I use to describe one of the most compassionate, empathetic writers that I know? Maureen O'Donnell is that rare breed of reporter who feels her subject. She is the most incredible obituary writer you ever want to read. Everyone that she writes about is brought alive. They are someone you suddenly wish you had known while they were still here, because she paints a portrait of their lives in the most vivid way. Broad paint strokes of a life lived in all of its glory and all of its tragedy and just all of its humanity. Whether you are a celebrity or the person down the block, she gives you a wonderful send-off. That's what Terkel is. And Maureen is a Studs Terkel minded writer, if ever I've known one. She loves the written word, so that when you read her obituaries, you're engaged, you're drawn in, and you can't put it down. Even if it's someone who no one knew, it's suddenly they have celebrity in the hands of Maureen O'Donnell because she gives them breath. Maureen, oh my gosh, Maureen has a Rolodex, if we still use that word, unlike anyone I know, because she has talked to everybody, from the butcher to the mayor to the neighbor to the teacher, of the persons that she writes about. And she's written so many celebrity obituaries that give you a view of a life you thought you knew, but you really didn't until the onion was peeled by Maureen. Maureen is the essence of a Studs Terkel writer, and I am thrilled to welcome my colleague, my friend Maureen, to the Terkel fold.
Hi, I'm Maureen O'Donnell from the Chicago Sun-Times, and I'm so honored to be here. I wish my immigrant parents were alive to hear about me receiving a Studs Terkel Award, because when they arrived in Chicago from Ireland, they started watching Studs Place, his 1950s TV show, to try and figure out how Chicago worked and how Americans thought and spoke. He's been a big part of my life. In high school, I wrote a book report about his book, Division Street America. And I read his book Working when I was commuting to Loyola University on the Red Line, the first kid in my family to graduate high school and go on to college. I still remember a chapter he wrote about grocery store cashier Babe Sicoli, which was the job that I had at Loyola. And I still remember her mantra as she moved things along the conveyor belt. I'm just moving the hips, the hands, and the register. The hips, the hand, and the register. I was amazed at his interviewing skills. How, I thought, did he get people to trust him, to open up to him? So, in 1996, I was thrilled when I got to interview Studs just before the Chicago Democratic Convention. Studs started schooling me on politics, telling me about Tom Pendergast, the Democratic boss of Kansas City. And I chimed in and said, oh, he was close to Harry Truman. Studs paused for a second. He was pleased that I knew a little bit about the Democratic machine there. And I will never forget it. In that inimitable voice, he said to me, "You're all right, kid." I have replayed that moment in my head more times than I care to admit. It's something that gives you a little glow when you need it. Studs, with his gift for interviewing working class people and sharing their stories with dignity and respect, is one of my, and I'm sure one of your heroes. In a small way, I think we're all trying to do the same thing that Studs did. The last 20 years have been extraordinarily tough for our business. I don't need to tell you that. We've all seen organizations cut back. We've seen some close. We've been called enemies of the people. But we're still here and we're needed more than ever. I remember hearing a while back about a veteran police officer who chastised a bunch of rookies standing up for us reporters when the rookies were criticizing an investigative reporter here in town. "Oh, you hate them," the old cop told them, "but wait until you need them." When I see startups like Block Club Chicago and other news organizations in town, it gives me hope, it gives me motivation. When I see interns, I try to help them the way that Carol Maureen and Roger Ebert and Lynn Sweet did for me. We all try to pass it along. I see the Studs Terkel Award as recognition for the work we do every day at the Sun-Times, upholding the constitutional role of the free press, more vitally important than ever in our democracy. Thank you again. It's such an honor to be in the company of Brandis Friedman and Karen Hawkins, Michael Puente. I also want to thank Seamus Toomey and Jim Kirk for agreeing to my request to become the Sun-Times obituary writer, and my current editor, Paul Saltzman, who I work with every day and whose touch is reflected in every obit, and our editor-in-chief, Steve Warmberg, and our former editor, Chris Fusco, for all their support over the years. And finally, I'd like to thank the talented members of the Society of Professional Obituary Writers, a great group, a great international group. Every day, their obituaries tell marvelous stories of everyday people around the world. Thank you again.
Congratulations, Maureen, and congratulations to all of this year's honorees. It is a real honor for Public Narrative to celebrate these journalists and their contributions to our great city of Chicago. Moreover, it is a privilege to be able to support organizations, groups, and individuals as they work to cultivate better, stronger, more equitable stories. So, before we close out for the night with an appearance from a very special guest, I want to take a moment of your time and ask you to consider giving to Public Narrative. As you know, Public Narrative was formed more than 30 years ago, based on the principle that American democracy requires a free, informed press and an educated public. I joined Public Narrative as a board member last year at a time when our country was shifting societally, viscerally, and emotionally. And as we all continue to cope with the enduring pandemic and its fallout, we are also trying to figure out what is a new normal and what does that mean for us personally. And yet, amidst these unprecedented times, nonprofits are also working overtime to be relevant and resourceful. These are incredibly difficult times, and Public Narrative is rising to the challenge to continue its work in the areas of public education, public health, and public safety. But we can't keep doing this tireless work without your support. As you know, every dollar matters. So if you know, there was no ticket cost for the event this year. We chose to do so, knowing this meant more people could have access to the awards event. But that also means we need to rely on the support of those who can contribute. So I'm asking all of you to consider making that contribution tonight. Your contribution will enable Public Narrative to keep offering community engaged events, keep offering resources and important trainings, and to continue to honor people-centered journalism for years to come. So again, I urge you to please consider making a contribution tonight. And you can do so in one of three ways. I'm going to lift up the raffle, right, that Jamira and Marcus had both mentioned earlier. Would really love for you to consider going to the website that's in the chat. And you have until 7 p.m. sharp to get in those raffle tickets. Another way will be to go ahead, pull out your phones and text. You can text PN 2021 to 44321. And I believe that will be in the chat as well. And then finally, the tried and true way, please visit our website at publicnarrative.org/donate. No contribution is too small or too big. We could really use your support. So thank you for your consideration. And remember, every dollar matters in supporting our work. Thank you for your support of Public Narrative.
And thank you, Anita, for giving us information about how to continue to support Public Narrative and the work that you all do. And thank you, all of you, again, for joining us this evening. I'm Cheryl Corley, and so happy to have been a part of Public Narrative's annual salute to journalists who really embody the values that Studs Terkel embraced. And if you've been to the Community Media Awards before, you know it's a tradition to end the night with one of Stud's favorite songs, This Land Is Your Land. You all can, sing it along at home or wherever you are. But tonight is the first time that the song will be performed in a language other than English. So please welcome Juan Diaz. He's the co-founder and executive director of Chicago's own Sonos de Mexico Ensemble.
Hello, I'm Juan Diaz. I'm the co-founder of the group Sonos de Mexico Ensemble here in Chicago, and it's my pleasure to congratulate all the winners of this year's Public Narratives Community Media Awards. I know it's a tradition to sing Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land at the end of the ceremony, which was one of Stud's favorite songs. And I'd like to share with you a version that we came up with about 15 years ago during the immigration reform protest march in Grant Park. This is a song that we ended up recording in one of our albums, and the album went on to get a couple of Grammy nominations because it was a really powerful song. It really resonated. So I'm gonna sing it for you. The chorus. Hello, I'm Juan Diaz. I'm the co-founder of the group Sonos de Mexico Ensemble here in Chicago, and it's my pleasure to congratulate all the winners of this year's Public Narratives Community Media Awards. I know it's a tradition to sing Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land at the end of the ceremony, which was one of Stud's favorite songs. And I'd like to share with you a version that we came up with about 15 years ago during the immigration reform protest march in Grant Park. This is a song that we ended up recording in one of our albums, and the album went on to get a couple of Grammy nominations because it was a really powerful song. It really resonated. So I'm gonna sing it for you. The chorus at the end is in English, so we can all join and sing together. But this is This Land. Esta tierra es tuya. Para todos los inmigrantes, esta tierra es tuya, esta tierra es mía, desde el horizonte hasta la otra orilla, desde las montañas, costas, ríos y valles, la tierra es para ti, para mí. En el mundo vive mucha gente pobre y en el mundo vive otra gente rica, y luego tenemos a muchos viajeros en busca de una oportunidad. Órale, compadre, no se me agüiten por andar lejos de su tierra, porque aquí conquista su tierra, sí señor. Cuando caminaba, llegué a una frontera donde había un letrero pa' que no pasara, y del otro lado no decía nada. La tierra es para ti, para mí. En la carretera donde voy viajando se abre mi destino como una alborada, y así debe ser de quien la trabaja. La tierra es para ti, para mí. Sí, señor. ¡Uah! Esta tierra es tuya, esta tierra es mía, desde el horizonte hasta la otra orilla, desde las montañas, costas, ríos y valles. La tierra es para ti, para mí. Everybody sing it now. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. One more time. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Incredible. Incredible. Thank you all so much for a wonderful, wonderful evening. And congratulations once more to this year's winners. And thanks to those of you watching for making the 26th Annual Community Media Awards very, very special, even virtually. Many thanks to each of you who participated in this year's raffle. For the Terkelian bundle, there's still some time for you to get your raffles in. And thanks again to our sponsors, the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation, WBEZ, Elevate, Chicago Public Square, Michael Burke and Robert Charles, and Paul O'Connor. Before we close for the evening, I have to really give a special thanks to Tom Clark, Hank DeZutter, and Susie Schultz for helping to establish this organization and bringing it to where it is and how you all revere Public Narrative, formerly Community Media Workshop. Inheriting the organization has been an incredible, incredible journey, and inviting board directors to join me in this ride has been even more phenomenal. But it's the stories that connect us and bringing us together. So I'm very, very thankful that you all chose to celebrate this year's Studs Terkel Community Media Award winners, that you chose to celebrate community media here in Chicago, and quite frankly, that you've ridden it out for as long as you have in journalism. Now, I totally understand that many of you talked about being mouthy, you talked about, being passionate. You do this from your heart and you lay it all on the line, and it's very much appreciated. So for pulling it all together, I want to thank Moreva Lindo for hunting down videos and gathering folks and bringing us together and making sure that we're all on one accord. This has certainly been a season that has been difficult to really process a lot of what's going on in our country, a lot of what's going on in our city. But the folks here in this virtual room, you are the ones who are doing it. And we as Chicagoans who love and know this city, we appreciate your hard work very, very much. As Cheryl said earlier, we had over 80 nominations for the Studs Terkel Community Media Award. And certainly while we couldn't select everyone for the award, it was a true testament to the hard work that journalists have done to keep us informed and engaged throughout the entire year. Difficult as it was to figure out how to pull this event off last year, I'm so grateful for the folks who brought their brain trust and their experience to the table in helping us to make it happen. Like I said, past Terkel winners, of course, this year's Terkel winners, their enthusiasm was just the inspiration that we needed to go the distance. So as we round out this evening, we are going to share our raffle winner in just a second. But I want to take this time before we close to invite you all to partner with us one last time for the evening as we go into a phenomenal, phenomenal future for public narrative. Now, many of you may realize I came into this organization not quite 3 years ago. Susie and I connected, and in that connection, she saw something that I didn't quite see at the moment. But inheriting this organization has been one that has been near and dear to my heart, and inviting you all to join us in its future as we continue to partner across our city to help change narratives across our city and ultimately across the country. I'm really thrilled that we get a chance to share that and celebrate that with you. And I'm hopeful that we'll get a chance to celebrate next year's Terkel Award winners in person. That would be so incredible. Our raffle winner for the evening for the Terkelium bundle is none other than Martha Irvine. Congratulations, Martha. All right, thank you all again for joining us, for celebrating with us, for celebrating great journalism, and again, for just being a part of the public narrative community. All right, until next year, have a wonderful, wonderful evening.